Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hey there, everyone. My name is Gooey. I am host of the podcast Flashback 64, the chronological Nintendo 64 podcast, where we are covering every game in the Nintendo 64 library in order. And today I want to talk to you about a game I love, not for the N64, but that game is Resident Evil 4. Now, this was a big game for me at the time it came out. I had been a fan of the Resident Evil series sort of casually before. I was pretty young when the first few games came out, in the single digits of age. And they were always really cool to me, though. We would play them with my friends. They'd freak me out, But I wouldn't say that I was like a diehard fan or anything, But right around the time I played this game was where I was at the ripe age to like really get into it. I would say I was like early teen when Resident Evil 4 came out. So right when this is when I started to appreciate more mature media, I guess you could say, for adults. And at the time when it released on GameCube, I had maybe this false insecurity about whether or not I was playing things for a younger audience or not. And being a lifelong Zelda / Nintendo fan and having a GameCube, it really kind of I felt like I wanted to play something that was like for grown-ups, you know what I mean? So when I finally played Resident Evil 4, it sort of delivered on that, as goofy and silly as it can be at times, and certainly less horrifying maybe than the earlier Resident Evil games. It gave me that feeling of like, oh, I'm playing something mature for adults. But that's not the main reason why it persists in my life today. I actually got very into the gameplay of it all, and it's a game that I still very much love today. In fact, I wasn't making a hard list. I was thinking about it in my head, and I think it's in maybe the top 3 comfort games for me, where I can just put it on, and it's sort of brain off comfort, second nature, that perfect muscle memory game that I just play, and it's like comfort food to me. I know this game is a little more divisive for some people because it did more drastically take the series into a more like action-oriented genre, you could say. I still appreciate what it does, and in my later years, I have come to really love the survival horror elements of the older games, and I'm glad like they have kind of gone back to that with some of the more recent games, or like maybe blending the styles together. In fact, I would say probably, if I had to say which game is the best, it might be Resident Evil, the GameCube reimagining of the first one. Resident Evil 4 will always have that special place in my heart as my favorite. I think it still walks the line. Like, it's certainly no survival horror. Obviously, it's very action oriented, but I feel like the mechanics of it, Leon plays like he's kind of heavy, like you don't have total like free movement, it doesn't play like a shooter, you can't strafe, you can't move and shoot, there is a tanky quality to it that I think for me is really satisfying. I know that it can be divisive for a different set of people as well, But I do think that those encounters with it are well designed, and maybe it's just because I've played it so much, but it's never felt stiff or awkward to me. It's always felt really good all the way. I think it has a great way of teaching you this combat system, like having some small encounters at first and then leading up to, the first big set piece in the first village you really come across, and having like a horde of enemies that you kind of have to defend yourself from. The sort of push and pull of having to crowd control and stun some of the enemies to then do like a massive melee move to them to take them down. That all feels really good to me. And speaking of push and pull, like the fact that the game has this like hidden mechanic where it will reward you or not reward you based on how well you've done, to kind of always keep you in like a sweet zone of like having just enough ammo but never feeling too overpowered. In the same time, if you're doing poorly, like kind of giving you more stuff to boost you up and get you back in the fight. Obviously, if you get really good at the game, you will inevitably get overpowered, especially by the end of the game, once you've fully like maximized your loadout and everything. It's it's much more action and over the top as your skill increases. But I think that's cool too. I think all the Resident Evil games have that. This one just stands out a little more because maybe it's the first time you're playing as a character who acts as a quipping action hero with a lot of cheesy one-liners and things like that. The gameplay on GameCube, that was really great to me back in the day. I hadn't played a ton of games really like that at the time. I kind of I was more a solitary player playing games like The Legend of Zelda. Wasn't playing a lot of like shooters or things like that. So for me, this was a really satisfying gameplay experience, and that only continued when the game got re-released for, one of the many times it's been re-released, but when it got re-released on the Wii and it added in motion controls, Resident Evil 4 on the Wii is still my favorite iteration of this game. I just find it being one of the best games to incorporate motion controls on the Wii. Maybe made it a little bit easier, obviously, because you can shoot right at the thing you want to aim at just by pointing. But I found it so satisfying, and it has such a great feel to it. Even to this day, it has not been that long since I've replayed it. We talked about it on Flashback 64, and it was, it was just as great replaying it that way. Speaking of re-releases, I never actually really played the remake that was made of it a few years ago. Every time I mention that, people tell me I absolutely have to, and I don't know, I don't have necessarily ill feelings about it, but it's one of those games where anytime I get the urge to play the game, I just want to go back and play Resident Evil 4, the original. It just is a game that has always spoken to me, and I don't necessarily feel like I need the remake. They changed enough things where I can appreciate it as a different experience, but I don't know, I kind of like the experience that I have, though. It's not without things that sometimes make me wince. Some of the portrayals of the characters like Ashley Graham maybe are a bit questionable, but overall, in terms of like the gameplay, I don't need knife parrying or things like that. Although I did come to appreciate that in Resident Evil Requiem. So maybe with that under my belt, it's time to go back and give the remake of Resident Evil 4 a try. But that being said, I do kind of like the story of this game. It's a little goofy at times. It does really build up to this big kind of outrageous action set piece, but I've never been one for like getting really into the lore of the Resident Evil series or anything. I always just kind of appreciate each game as its own thing. And so that being said, like I sort of like A lot of the main antagonists of this game, like from the chief in the first village, who's more of like this intense, heavy, gruff character, to the Napoleonic Ramon Salazar character, and the game, and of course Osmond Saddler, the cult leader behind it all have a lot of personality. I really like how the story is told, the sort of mix of like those communication segments to cutscenes, and you know what? I even like the quick time events that were in the game. Obviously, that's become a thing that is kind of looked down upon nowadays, but at the time, I don't know. I thought it was fun. I specifically remember, I have no idea why I would do this at the time, but I was very young, so give me a break. Beating one of the early bosses, the Del Lago boss, that's like the big lake monster. And I remember beating this boss and just getting up during the cutscene to go grab a snack or a drink or something like that, and coming back to the room and discovering that during that cutscene there was a quick time event that killed my character, and I had to redo the scene, and that certainly added a lot of stress to the experience as I continued. It was a learning experience, but yeah, it was fun. Of course, going through it, upgrading your weapons is super satisfying. Dealing with the iconic merchant. What are you buying, stranger? That never gets old to me. He's one of my favorite merchants or characters in games, really. And yeah, that whole push and pull of like finding treasures, selling things to him to upgrade your weapons, or maybe eventually knowing the right time to change between certain weapons, developing different strategies for the different types of enemies they would introduce into the game. And of course, the briefcase that you get, where you organize your weapons and items you pick up. I always found a satisfaction in organizing that to make everything fit. And I would always go for the upgrade on that, of course. And yeah, I don't know. It's really fun to sort of look for those treasures and combine them to make better treasures, and find all the little secrets throughout the game. Working with some of your characters that work alongside you, like Luis. Again, maybe some of the dialogue there, I'm sure maybe they've made a little bit more agreeable in the remake. And of course, Ada, that was cool. Seeing things from previous games that I sort of recognize, seeing these characters in this new setting, that was cool. But also taking it somewhere completely different, having all of the previous games mostly set in one location. It was kind of cool to go globetrotting, and I know they took that further in future games, and maybe they went a little overboard at times, let's just say, putting it nicely. But that was really cool here, like the opening of the game drawing back to the events of the original games, and then flipping the script with like the Spanish guitar and stuff. That was always really cool to me. The most of the boss encounters are really good. I have fond memories of all of them. Thinking back, like the layouts, the level designs are, they're a bit more straightforward, and a thing I've grown to love as someone, again, who is a Legend of Zelda fan. I do like the more complex, like the police stations or mansion sort of layouts that you get in Resident Evil, as opposed to the straightforward hallways, I guess you could say. But it still works in the context of this game. They get a little weird with it in the castle, where they kind of have some backtracking, but it doesn't actually really satisfy to my liking. But it provides in the sort of action department, and the different settings are unique in the game, from the village to the castle to the island. And I really appreciate that. And again, they have different cool set pieces in those locations that give it a lot of flavor, that really make it work. Obviously, like kind of the elevation of the different enemies they throw at you. There are some moments that are genuinely scary. I think some of the most iconic ones I think are the first time I encountered like the chainsaw guy, where I was like, who is that? And shooting at him, he's not dying, and he gets up to me and he just cuts my head clean off. That's a memorable one. There's the one boss fight that's like in the sewers where you have to like freeze them, and it'll really wear down your health and ammo. And if you're good, and I can usually do this, you can beat them, but you can also just escape and survive. And I found that always very fun. There's, what's the one? Oh, the first time you encounter the regenerators or regenerators, very creepy enemies where you like hear them breathing, and it's just gets under my skin. And you have that fight with like Krauser where you go from like knife fighting him to like a full-on battle. So just a lot of cool creative stuff going on there. And that's not even to mention like the bonus unlockable modes. Mercenaries, a lot of fun. The Ada storyline that kind of makes like a bite-sized little version of the game for you to play that's more even more action oriented, is also very satisfying. So I don't know, it's a game that lives on to me. I know, it's been released a million times. It's it took the series in a weird direction that some people are still reckoning with, but for me, it's always in that sweet spot of gaming that I love. That's like a push and pull between satisfying action with some difficulty mixed in. Maybe, of course, the puzzles are a little lackluster compared to some of the other series. The level designs, like I said, but I think all in all, it's just a really well-made game that I think it's made its mark on me in a way that, while I appreciate what's come before and things that have come after, maybe not Resident Evil 5 or 6 necessarily, but how they reimagine the series, and I can appreciate all that surrounds it. I think it's just one of those things where the game is just forever comfort food to me. So I'll always appreciate it for that. And thank you, Resident Evil 4. And thank you to the Fun and Games podcast for allowing me to come on and express my love for this game. Thank you to everyone for listening, and happy gaming.
So Many Games is an independent video game website from a group of passionate people. With a team of over 10 writers doing their bit for game discoverability, you'll surely find a game that will pique your interest. Our reviews delve into the main elements of the game and how they made us feel. With unbased but fair critique and AI-free writing, we hope to offer you a safe place to find out if a game is worthy of your time. But we also write articles from Steam Next Fest catch-ups to topics of interest from the gaming world. And we also publish written interviews from developers to voice actors on our bid to shine some light on the people behind our favourite games. But that's not all, as we also offer a monthly podcast interviewing developers, artists, composers, voice actors, and anyone else we can think of to come and talk about their experiences of making their latest or not so latest projects in real time. With a fortnightly newsletter to go on top of our offerings, there really is something for everybody. So what are you waiting for? Get on over to somanygames.co.uk and see for yourself all the amazing content that we have waiting for you.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.